talk to you about cookie cutter diet and training programs and protocols. A lot of people will write me and go, well, what kind of diet should I do? Or what kind of training should I do? Or how does this look? Or how does that look? Here's the thing. It's hard when you just write somebody out of the blue and ask them this. If they actually tell you and give you an answer, I kind of question their care or their knowledge on what they're doing, or maybe they're just trying to appease you or help you out quickly. But here's the real reality of this. If I was your personal trainer where I worked with you hands-on, or your dietitian, nutritionist, and we were working hands-on and I was monitoring you daily, really seeing how efficient and effective certain protocols were for you in general, then that's another story. That's my job, and that's what I would be doing. And that is what you should expect when you're asking that kind of question, is that kind of treatment, that kind of monitoring, and that kind of teaching and learning. When you just ask somebody out of the blue, well, what should I eat? Well, what should I do? You're not going to get an accurate answer, because what works for me or what works for Sally, Chuck, Joe, or whoever you're asking doesn't necessarily equate nor mean it's going to work for you. And I don't like it when people go, well, this is what I do. Well, this is what I do, so this is what you should do. Because that's not true, and that's not accurate at all. In fact, that can be quite detrimental. And to me, it's, kind of, I hate to say unethical, because it's not unethical, but it's almost like lazy to me. I don't know. Some people are genuinely trying to help you, and I can't fault them for that. But it's really wrong and ineffective teaching. You need to have personalized, one-on-one attention and monitoring to what you're doing to really get something nailed down and effective. If I told you guys my diet right now, listed it top to bottom, I would probably get, 60% of you telling me, how do you do that, or da-da-da-da, but that's what works for me. You'll tell me, well, I can't eat this, well, I can't do that, and that's great, because we're all different, and we all have different body responses to things. Some people can't even be in the same room as a carbohydrate without gaining weight, and some people can eat however much they want of it and not gain a pound. My wife can eat buckets of rice, okay, and she's still 98 pounds. Still, doesn't matter. But you could take somebody else and give them one serving of bread, rice, pasta, whatever, and they would look like whatever the next day, probably feel like they gained 2 or 3 pounds, and it would be detrimental to them, and they certainly couldn't do it every single day. The point is that my bicep workout might not be effective for you, and your chest workout might not be effective for me. But if you ask me what should I do or whatever, well, this is what works for me. Well, that's great. It's nice to share. But you need to try it out on your own, through trial and error, and see what works for you. Not be dependent on asking somebody, well, what should I eat? Well, da-da-da. It's not a good question. Unless you're working with someone one-on-one. You could say, could you give me an example of what you do or what you've given clients so I can see if it works for me? That's a good way to phrase it and ask it. But a lot of times it's the way that it's asked, and then certain people will feel like they need to always have an answer for something and just give you whatever answer they can, or just not genuinely understand the whole situation on proper teaching of this and how it works. So just be aware of that when you're asking people, or if you're reading a diet in a magazine or a bodybuilding magazine workout or whatever, that it may not work for you. And just because it works for somebody else, it doesn't work for you. And this is something that really needs to be one-on-one, person-to-person specific. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, when you're asking these type of questions, especially newer guys to this or girls, because it's confusing. It is.